Are we gone?
Yeah.
Good? Okay.
I'm going into the thing to make sure that the second thing that I have to push live on.
Do you need to
And
test this microphone, Sam?
huh?
Do you need to test this microphone?
I see it right there.
Okay.
I am going to get my headphones off. And I think we're live.
We're live.
Winner.
I'm not seeing image outputting though. Why is my image not outputting? Okay, program says we're live, but YouTube Studio did. Oh, yep. Okay, I was just trying to catch up.
Okay.
I think we're live.
All right, we're live. Okay, welcome back to
Welcome back to
episode number 2.5.
not 3.
Oh, 3.
I
Yeah,
like 3.
3. Okay, episode number 3. Today is Thursday, October 10th, 2024. We're coming live to you again from downtown Abilene, Texas, the heart of downtown historic Abilene, Texas, from the Majestic Coffee Shop in the Neon Parrot Live Studios. Welcome back, my guest and co-host.
I was
D.
about
Grant.
to say, guest, co-host, are those
Well, we're both guests, I guess, in
Ah.
a way.
Interesting. Okay.
So how was your week?
Dude, it's been awesome.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Highlights?
It's wild to, like, I keep having great days. Not
Good.
just like good days, not just pretty good days, like great days where I go to bed and I'm just like, thank you God for another just fan-freaking-tastic day.
Awesome.
And is there one thing that's like stood out above everything else? No. It's like just from the moment I wake up all the way through to the minute my subconscious mind kicks in and my conscious mind goes, see you tomorrow. It's
Love
just
it.
like winter.
Love it. So no real highlights, but just a really great week.
Great conversations with people, gaining more clarity on some things I've been just like working on. And you know, so I think this is kind of ties into some of the stuff we've been talking about for the past couple of weeks with like Abilene and development and like identity. There's a lot of times we go through periods where we think that we know what we're doing. We think we know the direction that we're going in. Things are gelling and something's like, okay, like storytelling. It's a huge part of what I do. There was a period of time where I thought, okay, I'm just supposed to write stories and then share them with people. And that was true. But then I found that in sharing my stories with people and having conversations, people would tell me things and then I would kind of repeat what they said back to them that they had shared with me. But like the way that I communicated what they had shared with me, they're like, oh, that's it. Yes, that's it. You articulated that so well. I understand myself better. And I'm like, oh, and like you should help people do this. And it's storytelling in a different way. But it became clear through conversation, and it made me feel good that I was helping people understand themselves better. I couldn't see that in part of the like process, but like it's becoming more and more clear. So there's been a lot of things I've been just like continuing to grow and move in, and one big thing is like letting go of. I pay attention to details, but I also surrender details. Because I think if we get too detailed and focused on what it has to look like, and especially how it has to be, then we take the divine, universal God force out of the equation, and we try to be the ones in control of all that.
Possibilities instead of outcomes.
And it can really derail stuff. So just a regular surrender practice, and I open myself up to infinite love, infinite abundance, infinite possibilities, and joy and happiness.
Nice.
And that's what keeps coming to me. So I know there's some law of attraction stuff in there somewhere. It's metaphysical, definitely.
But it's working out right now.
Totally.
I love that. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. We talked earlier this morning. You didn't catch a sunrise this morning, but it was gorgeous. It was really fantastic. Last time we talked, we started talking we talked about a lot of subjects, but some of the kind of things I think I'd like to revisit with you, if you're open, is some social media stuff.
Absolutely.
And well, let's just start with that. So, you use social media and have for many years, and it's
Not as I'm honestly not as active.
mm-hmm,
That's something I was thinking about this morning. Like, if any of you guys have followed me at any point over the last decade or whatever, I really disappeared last year, and I've stayed pretty disappeared this year, and I'm just now starting to kind of come back a little bit, but
I like hermit mode.
oh,
I love a good
I think
hermit
it's
mode.
essential.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just cut it all off, get in your little nest. I'm a Cancer, so put my crab shell on, and hunker down. I love it.
Well, I'm a Sagittarius, and we fire signs have a hard time being silent sometimes. But I last year I had to,
Yeah.
and this year, for most of it, I've needed to just stay silent,
Mm.
and be hidden, and be like, I've got some friends that are like, "You turned into a hermit." I'm like, "Hell yeah, I did."
Hell yeah, I did.
What you see now didn't exist last year.
Mm-hmm.
I needed that for me.
Mm-hmm. So it just reminds me of my own journey. It's probably 3 years ago. No, honestly, it was shortly after a good member of our community who many of us remember, Mark Rogers, passed, and that to me was the onus to actually shut down social media for myself. And I got off Facebook, deleted it from my phone.
Ditto.
Made it difficult to even be on Instagram. And then TikTok came along, and I'm a junkie. I'm just a junkie for TikTok. But the other two, as I've gotten back kind of on Facebook and Instagram the last year or so, it's really just disappointing. I'm not saying it has changed. I mean, we all probably have our opinions on how social media has changed over the years. And my contention is that it's still trying to figure out what it is as a tool or as a piece of propaganda or as advertising. I'm not sure what it's trying to be, but it's interesting to me. And, I'm sure if it might be fun someday to like get a group of us down and just pass our feeds around, like, hey, check out my Facebook feed, D, and then let Sam see your Instagram feed and just see how different it is, because it's so personalized. Those algorithms have personalized to our clicks and likes and all that so much that it just keeps us in a little bubble.
So my Instagram feed
Yeah.
is all spiritual, metaphysical stuff with a little bit of relationship stuff. But I have zero political, zero sports. No, that's not true. I've got some boxing stuff on there. I've got some Muhammad Ali and some Rocky and some Tank Davis.
My Instagram feed is like tattoo after tattoo after tattoo after tattoo, a painting, a tattoo, and it's kind of annoying. But also, I remember I was at a educational conference for tattoo a few years back, and one of the presenters made a great point. He said, with social media and Instagram, we're so spoiled because we're looking at essentially fine art. We're looking at beautiful pieces of work that took hours and tens and 12s and hundreds of hours in some cases to complete some of these big back pieces or whatever. And we just, give it 0.5 seconds and scroll on and scroll on and scroll on. Where, I don't know about your experience, but my experience, I love art in all its forms. And to go to the Philharmonic or to see a show or to go to a museum or even to come watch like open mic down here at the coffee shop on Sunday nights, just to see different people come out and play. That's such a more powerful and profound and humanizing. That's not a word. But you understand what I'm trying to say there. It puts me in place. It keeps me present.
Well, and there's a deeper appreciation that takes place
rather than just scrolling.
I think so. Screens have, I think part of that has altered our chemical makeup.
I think so.
And also altered our ability to really value what's in front of us. in a very tangible sort of way.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I think it goes, we're talking about like Instagram, social media as a way to, to publish art or to put your work out in front of other people. But the other side of that is like the news cycle, how massively disproportional the fear has become through that little screen for whatever it is.
I don't. I honestly don't think the news has changed at all.
Just same old stuff.
I think what's changing is people are actually recognizing how skewed and not. I'm not talking when I say biased. I'm not talking about like more left than right because that's a whole
Sure.
political thing. But I spent 13 years working for an NPR for KACU. Every day when I would do morning edition for 3 hours, and I would read two different periods of one was a 4 minute, and then the other one was a 2.5 minute news cycle from the AP.
Mm-hmm.
Every story was telling you about something that was going wrong in the world.
Going wrong in the world.
Except for the one story, the one little blip that would happen maybe once a month, and they say off the beaten path.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be one little kind of either middle of the road, non-emotive sort of thing, or one kind of uplifting, kind of positive. And I noticed that like I would look for those stories and I would add that into the mix because I wanted to present something different. And then I started teaching my news team like, hey, I want you to find stuff that's positive.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care if every other news organization in Abilene or the country is doing this way.
Mm-hmm.
And John Krasinski, Jim from The Office, created a media organization of sorts about 2 or 3 years ago where he was promoting and publishing positive stories. And I think it got bought by Yahoo for like $20 million or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Yahoo's done anything with it,
No, they just wanted to sweep it under the rug.
but it shows that there's value.
Yeah.
And it also shows that the collective consciousness of America and possibly the world, actually I'd imagine more of the world than America anyways,
Mm-hmm.
is certainly open and looking for things that are not so skewed in the what's going wrong with us.
Yeah.
I was having a conversation yesterday with the love of my life, and we were talking about the storm in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if this has been done. We're kind of starting to wonder how much human, we're talking about carbon footprints and all that stuff, but I wonder how much of our energy, because our hearts and our minds emit energy frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. David Hawkins wrote at least 3 books about the energy frequency. Starting at the top is joy and love. The very bottom is guilt and shame. And that's what we're emitting as humans. I wonder if our collective consciousness, if we were to measure hurricanes with Hertz frequencies,
Mm-hmm.
what would we measure in that? This is beyond how fast the winds are blowing and how much water is being dumped, but is there shame energy inside that? Is there guilt energy inside that? Is there anger?
Mm-hmm.
What would happen if we collectively, Wayne Dyer talked about this, he said, if I were ever made to be ruler of the world, I wouldn't implement sweeping changes. I would just surround the people, especially in the Middle East. I would surround those areas with people that just meditated and just emitted love into those areas and change that consciousness. And what would happen if instead of trying to, like, prayer is great because when you pray, you're emitting an energy frequency and you're sending it out into the universe, and God consciousness is acting in that way. But if we collectively spent time just emitting an energy frequency out to the people of Florida, would maybe Hurricane Milton not be as powerful?
I like where you're going with this, and we kind of talked about, we hinted at some of this last week, and there's a story I remember of a group of women, generally older women, but to my knowledge, they still do this. I wish I could tell you who they were, but they will purposely go to cities, like, for instance, not to be political, but before a big debate or before a conference. This is just an example. They could also do this, in a situation that's been struck by an earthquake or a hurricane or a tornado. But these women go en masse to these areas, and they do that. They pray, and they pray to lift up the community. They pray for the people. They don't pray for outcomes. They're praying for, yes, a general sense of peace and love and unity for that. And you can actually measure the effect that they're having. Sort of like the random number counters, where, have you heard of this? Like this experiment's been going on for a long time. Again, I'm not going to quote anybody because I don't have that in front of me, but a random number generator is just that. It just generates random numbers.
Yeah.
But you can take a random number generator to, for instance, Bonnaroo, like when we went to Bonnaroo in 2016, and place it there, and you can actually, the conscious group, right? So all these different people that are there that are sharing a consciousness can actually affect that random number generator. And that has been shown, like when 9/11 happened, there's random number generators all over the world, and they sync up during these big moments of mass consciousness. And with Hurricane Milton, that's just passed through Florida, and hopefully everybody's doing great. I haven't watched the news this morning. But there was, some discussion about that yesterday on social media. What if let's try to make that storm go away? Like send energy towards that storm to make it dissipate and make it become less, instead of the other way around, which is, oh my God, this is so terrifying. It's a category 5. It's coming right for us. We're all going to die.
Does that fear exacerbate what's already there?
I think so. I think absolutely it does. And, like, now we're going to get a little political here, but we're coming up on an election. October surprises all the time. We just anticipate them. And it's almost like kind of whipping up the herd a little bit for some sort of outcome. And I'm not sure that there's specific people or parties to blame for that. I think we just naturally lean into it as humans. Maybe it's our sheep nature or something, but we all can get kind of lathered up over fear real easy.
Well, and so from a news media standpoint, like this is something I learned, and this is political in a different sort of way. But John D. Rockefeller is heralded in the business community still. In the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, he was like one of the icons, titans of richest man alive, like the Jeff Bezos of that day. And also instrumental in implementing and instituting what we now know as the public education system. And he understood the power of consciousness because he grew up very, very poor. When he learned how to think differently and change his dynamic, and then started making money, and then made more money and more money, and he implemented a factory system so that his workers all did the same things. And if somebody couldn't make it, all right, take him out and put in somebody else. But like there's not the same sort of value system that you have like in a small business kind of setting. And the same is applicable in, once schools went from being small schoolhouses where one teacher is teaching a group of 3 or 4 people, maybe 5, kids of different ages, all different subjects, but like consciously like pouring into them and developing them. When that shifted into a very factory-based mechanical system where, nope, you're gonna study this at this time, and we're gonna pass you up to this point and this point and this point. Like, I learned that the education system was built to create factory workers.
It absolutely is.
And we don't have factories like we did. We don't have the work, like work does not work like it did in the 30s, 40s, and 50s or 60s. But we're still educating people the same way. And we're still treating them and keeping them at a lower consciousness. You probably know about like the way that music on the radio is at 440 hertz.
Used to be 432.
432. 432 is the divine frequency. But you can control people. You can send them all kinds of messages subconsciously and keep people like, there's songs that I used to send when I was dating before. Like I would send these love songs to, girl I was dating. looking back now at those songs and the lyrics in them,
Not too cool.
dude, so codependent, crazy.
Toxic.
And I don't think the songwriters knew that that's what they were doing. That was the product of their culture and their family and their programming and all this stuff. But those songs become popular, and then they get engendered into our collective consciousness as this is a true passionate love song. Same thing with a lot of, like, Friends was one of my favorite shows in the 90s. Ross and Rachel. Ross and Rachel is toxic AF. Ross is one of the like, no offense to David Schwimmer, brilliant creative guy, but Ross, toxic AF.
Yep.
Like, but that was heralded as, oh, I want to be a Ross and Rachel.
Yep. I want to be a Ross and Rachel.
Absolutely not.
Yep.
So going back to all of this, to me, all in circles into this is impacting and influencing our collective consciousness in mass. When we shift this, we shift, I think, we shift weather patterns. We shift not just the ways that we vote from a political system standpoint, but what if we don't vote the same way? What if the things that we demand of our government, which is supposed to be public servants, but don't operate like servants at all? I feel like I've gone off on a tangent, but like, it's all our consciousness. When we become more awakened, everything changes.
I agree with that. Have you been watching the Schumann resonance the last few weeks? Are you familiar with the Schumann resonance? Schumann resonance, don't take this to the bank. It's basically the frequencies that the Earth emits.
Oh, right, yeah.
But also kind of in conjunction with the sun, electrically, electromagnetically, whatever. And again, I'm a TikTok slut, so I watch a lot of these people that come on and they show what the frequency is doing on any given day, and it's this graph, and there's blasts of white that come all the way down or whatever, and people kind of associate these different frequencies with crown chakra, root chakra, how big these pulses are, how much energy is coming in at any given time. And we just had some pretty serious X-class flares from the sun this last week, like a 7 and 9, another big-ass one yesterday. And I don't know if it's maybe... Sometimes I wonder if I'm actually growing and waking up, or if I'm just falling into the same trap as whatever everyone else is falling into. But I swear that stuff has a big effect on me. Like, I can feel that energy. Not all the time, not every day, but sometimes if I wake up and I'm like, man, what is going on? I just feel drained or foggy or whatever, and I'll check some of that. I'll check, like, what's the sun doing? I'll check what the Schumann resonance is doing, and 9 times out of 10, I feel like I'm being affected by that. Now, maybe, again, does that mean that I'm waking up and growing spiritually or just going back into a hole? I don't know. The jury's out on that. But I think it's, for me personally, the older I get and the more that I'm aware of all these things like frequency, energy, it seems to it opens up my eyes and my mind more to what's going on, not only with myself every day, but with kind of everybody else. It's interesting.
I think there's a harmonization that takes place.
Mm-hmm.
Because, so we are energy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we think that we're matter, but all matter is energy.
Mm-hmm.
The more that they split the atom and then the molecule and the this and the that and the quarks and the blah, 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 and you get down and there's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Energy. So we're impacting each other energetically 24/7, whether we are aware of it or not. Our conscious minds process 5% of what's actually going on.
And I would say that, most of us are so caught up in our own emotions, fear, pride, shame, etc., joy, hopefully also. But I think as I kind of observe my fellow human beings here in Abilene, and other places, you can almost smell what someone's experiencing emotionally. I mean, I can't smell that, but I can almost
a
smell
palpable-
it. It's a palpable sensation, and I think it's really easy to both deflect that emotion, absorb that emotion, help change someone else's perspective emotionally, just myself trying to be at peace in here. And you know, I've always been an emotional person. I'm an artist. I'm not afraid to cry. But again, as I've kind of, I hope it's wisdom. I hope it's maturity, but who knows? Jury's still out. My hope is that as I kind of become more peace for myself in my own shoes on a day-by-day basis, that I do think that that has an effect on others.
Absolutely. Well, because a little bit of metaphysics, everything and everyone is a reflection. So the world is a mirror.
Everyone's a mirror.
So as you are more at peace with yourself, you experience more peace outside of you. It's got to reflect it back. And things and people, this is what I've continued to experience. There are people that I know that I'm very fond of them as people. I love them with my whole heart. But no matter, as I change, no matter how much I have tried in different ways to maintain the connection, it's not there. And I'm understanding that it's because they can't mirror for me who I am. And there's disconnections that take place, and sometimes we just got to accept that. Like, there's friendships that I've had for a really long time that I've tried to reach out to those folks and nothing. And learning not to take that personally, but B, to go like, okay, this must not be the time.
Yeah.
Because whatever reflection, like, I've got to just accept what's coming to me. Part of another thing that, like, is cultural, especially for dudes, is we're taught from a young age that we as men and young men, boys, whatever, we chase after what we want. Well, anything you chase after, because you're chasing, it runs away. And one of the things about a strong masculine energy and also a strong feminine energy, there's no chasing. There's a magnetism that takes place. And so part of my disappearance last year and this year was like me harmonizing my own inner magnetism, changing my own energy frequency, and being out of that, like, I've got to go make it happen.
Yeah.
I've got to go create outcomes.
Gotta go hustle for it.
I got to go force things to go the way that I want them to go. That's dangerous.
It is, but like you said, culturally, that's what we're taught.
Yeah.
And that's what's reflected back through media, and it is really toxic, and it is really sad. We'll bring up P. Diddy, but I think it's interesting that, you know, all of this yuck is coming out from these moguls, these idols.
That guy was doing that shit for
a long time,
20-something years,
and
at least.
And then, you know, to hear that there's like a connection to the prison system, because thank you, Bill Clinton, we privatized prisons in our country. What were we thinking? But to keep those beds full so that private prison organizations can continue to make money, there's collaboration with the rap industry to glorify rape, murder, drugs, guns, violence. Say what? Glorifying going to prison. And then going back to, like, the education system, I mean, there's like this public school to prison pipeline. And we're talking about this like we can do anything about it. But I think even just being aware of it, sharing it, and just saying, hey, this is what's actually happening, and it's not a conspiracy theory. It's not something to be afraid of. And we can only hope that, you know, these fallen angels, or maybe that's too much glory for these guys, but that they continue to fall, and that we don't replace them. Maybe what we can go through now is a growing and a waking up to where we don't accept the trash that we're given.
When branches on a tree die or are not producing life, what do?
Cut them off, baby. Cut them off. Burn the tree
You
down.
don't chop the whole tree down. You prune.
Prune.
And consistently throughout time. One of the other things that we do in our country, we deify people and we vilify people, and
them,
and it keeps us consciously, socially, communally in a repetitive, perpetual drama triangle. Because somebody's got to be the villain, somebody else has got to be the hero, and then we end up being the victim. And in the drama triangle, those parts are not set. Those roles are not cast permanently. So the villain can easily become the hero, the victim can easily become the hero, and then anybody can become the villain. But it was early 2000s, late 90s when P. Diddy was being heralded and praised as a friend of Biggie right after he died. And he went on a huge. So there's a rapper that has gone by a couple of different names: New Wine, Hefe Wine, Wino. But back in his Christian sort of days, he came out here to Abilene because a buddy of mine was friends with him and brought him out for this show. And he told this story about how on New Year's Eve in 2001 or something like that, he got big enough. He got invited out to Puff Daddy's house. So he's at Puff Daddy's house. There's every celebrity in the world is there, and he's walking around in these rooms, and there's people having sex everywhere and doing drugs and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And he was like, "This is what is this? Is this not judging anybody, but is this what I want to be a part of?" And he just was like, "All right, dude, deuces. I'll see you later." And he took off. And one thing about Wine was that, from what I remember from that concert, he wasn't trying to proselytize to us. He didn't preach to us anything. There was all the Christian-y kind of things that were going on, but that was not his deal. But the fact that 20-something years ago he was talking about this is what a Puff Daddy party was like, that showed me that that's what that dude's life is like. And I wondered back then, how long is this thing going to go on? And now we fast forward in time to present day, and I don't follow trends. I don't follow popular things. I see somebody talking about, did you hear about Puff Daddy? I'm like, what happened? Well, he's being tried for this, and he fled the country, and he did this and that. And I'm like, when you do something for 20 years, 20-something plus years, and that was just the small little sliver of what I was made privy to. You can only imagine how much more stuff, like human trafficking and other things. But the consciousness state, there's shame all over that crap. You exacerbate that out for that gigantic period of time and the innumerable amount of people that were involved in all those different things. And yeah, that carries a massive weight. You prune that shit off. And you don't replace it with somebody else doing something similar in a popular sort of thing. Maybe we don't replace it at all. Maybe we just shift our focus over to people who are living exemplary lives, doing their best to lift others up, not from any sort of religious perspective, but just from I love myself, I love God, and I love people, period. And what if we, not to glorify it, not to deify it, but just to focus on it and give it some credit? And where attention goes, energy flows. So if we can put more of our attention on, like the hurricane thing, instead of focusing on the things we're afraid of, what if we focus on gratitude and joy? How might that shift things?
Yeah, that's a good point. So I'm thinking just about current music idols, and my son just got back from ACL this last weekend and was at the Chapel Roan show. Have you seen any images of ACL at this? There had to have been over 200,000 people at this show. And some of the pictures I've seen, you've got the main stage where she's playing and it's facing back, and there's 2 more stages, thousands of yards away, and this entire crowd is stretched all the way back, and they're all for her show. And I don't know anything about her. I think her music's cool. What I'm saying is I'm hoping that she's a good one, right? I don't know anything about her. We'll find out later, I'm sure, if she was at P Diddy parties. But it seems to me that every once in a while, some really great artists do come along, and it's like they're just naturally lifted up, and it's not forced
Hmm.
by the show controllers.
What you just described reminds me of those gigantic, humongous shows that came out in the early '90s when like Pearl Jam and Soundgarden and Nirvana and these tiny little bands in this small remote part of Seattle become humongous, and they're
Huge.
playing like at this. There's a stage like MTV would do like these. Those are before drones. They do these flyover helicopter things where there's a stage and then like you zoom way out, way out, and there's just seas of
A
people.
mass of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like Metallica in Moscow.
Mm.
Just like 1 million people, just some just unbelievable amount of people. If you've never been to a live concert, like a festival concert where there's a huge amount of people, you got to do it at least once, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, looking at those images from ACL and the Chappell Roan show, I'm thinking to myself, I don't know if ACL is a good fit for me moving forward, because I've kind of done the big crowd thing and they're fun, but yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy to be in a mass of 100, 200 plus thousand people and try to do anything.
When we were at ACL, or not, when we were at Bonnaroo in 2016,
Mm-hmm.
bringing that back up. So one of my favorite bands is Pearl Jam.
Mm-hmm.
We had Travis, Ben, and Bradford and I had stationed. We had a whole little section in front of the lighting stage,
Mm-hmm.
and we had sectioned it off. We watched I forget who the morning band was, but I remember Chris Stapleton was in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
Band of Horses was after him. Macklemore was
It was a great show.
right before, or no, J. Cole was right before Pearl Jam, and no, Macklemore was. And somebody came out on stage, whispered something in his ear, and Macklemore was like, "Hey, they haven't done this in 10 years, but they're saying we got to get out of here because there's this big lightning storm that's coming."
Yep.
So they actually kicked us out of the park. We went back to the trailer, and then we waited to hear them say we can come back in the park. Well, when that happened, we lost our spot.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God we lost our spot. We went to the VIP section where it was a much smaller group. We were closed off by a fence, but we had our own little private area. And I looked out into this massive sea of 85,000 people.
There's plenty of people.
Not 200,000 people.
No.
But 85,000 people. It was a massive sea, an ocean. And the little section where we had was just, everybody was jam-packed up like this. And they were all having a great time, but I'm like, no. Thank God we
Yep.
got to have that experience.
Yep.
But that's the last big show, massive show that I've seen. And I'm like you, man, like, I'd much rather have a real intimate show at like the Paramount or something like that. If it's gonna be like 1,000 people, but I'd also rather have, in a way, like my band was doing, maybe 50 or 60 people or whatever at Playfair Park, and we just had a great time. And nobody's stomping on each other. Like, people can dance and move around and have a good time. And, if you need to go to the bathroom,
You can.
you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so segueing into a shameless plug, since we're talking about live music.
Yes, please.
Again, it's Thursday, second Thursday of the month, and we are going to be putting on a free live music show with 3 bands tonight at the Cotton Warehouse just down the street, downtown Abilene.
Give us an address so people know.
The address is, Sam, help me out, 603 North 3rd. It's on the business card that I gave you.
What's the intersection? What's the street intersection?
So
For people that are watching, because
people that are watching or
if
listening.
we say a name of some place that you've never heard of before, maybe you type it into Google, maybe you get a map that way. But if you say it's the corner of 3rd and
So it's on the corner of 3rd
Walnut, Mesquite, Pine,
Ash.
Okay.
It's right across the street from Frontier, Texas, from Front Porch Coffee, from air gas. It's a city block, and it's just has brick walls around the entire
Yeah.
space. There's no roof on it. The entrance is on North 3rd. We'll have that clearly marked. Hoping for I think we've got a handful of vendors out there tonight. I'll be selling a couple of little wares, bits and pieces. Pretty sure that Miss Corey Wolf will be out with her tie-dyes. I'm not sure who else exactly.
What bands you have?
So tonight we have 3 original local acts. The first one, I think he's going by Mobe, and his name is Jeremy. Boy, I feel really bad that I don't know that off the top of my head. He's a Hardin Simmons student, has a solo act and a band, and he's going to come open us with a solo act. Excited about that. Then we have Damasio coming out, and he's a local hip hop artist. And then the closing act, or the headlining act, is Hanson. He's going by Goodbye Alex, and has a band with him tonight. We went out there last night to set up the new gear, and did a little rehearsal. It sounded great. So this is the 4th show that we put on. This is free. Bring your own beverages. Bring a chair. It's a fun time. Kids are welcome. I mean, it's all ages. It's a big space. The kids can run around safely. It's a lot of fun. So if you're listening and you're looking for something to do tonight, I think the doors open at 6:30. Music will start right around there, about 7. Come on out.
Awesome.
It'll be a good time.
Winner.
Mm-hmm. Shameless plug.
Oh, how about just a awesome plug?
Good.
You let me plug myself last week.
There you go.
Let's just take shame out of whether it's shameless or shameful. There's no shame involved.
There's no shame in plugging. So, any other thoughts about social media?
I don't really know how much we've actually talked about social media.
I don't know that we have talked about it at all.
I think we've
We
talked
just kinda
about consciousness and the effects that social media has on consciousness.
which should be studied if it's not already.
I'm pretty sure there's multiple people that are.
Maybe we should look into that a little bit and find out what research is coming out. To me, it's fascinating to be a part of the journey of being alive in America. You know, I was born in the late 70s, and I remember when we first got a telephone that had a wireless handset, you know, and you could maybe walk to the other room. Couldn't go out in the garage and shut the door because then you had no reception. And we went from that, cell phones, video games. I mean, we had neighbors that had Pong, you know, and
Super Mario when it first came out.
Oh, we got a Nintendo for Christmas in 1984, I think, is when it first came out. And my parents stayed up all night long to beat Zelda and Mario Brothers.
Wow.
I mean, like every night until they beat it. You know, that was their gig, and I think that's hilarious. But you know, moving from that to personal computers and internet, and then the cell phone devices that we have today that are so just extra powerful, they're magic. They're just magic. And I think about my parents and, you know, the kind of arc of technology in their life. I think about my kids and the arc of technology in their life. And now I have a granddaughter and what that's going to look like for her. And it just seems like we're kind of playing with fire without any rules.
That's what innovation is.
Playing with fire with no rules. Wow.
Because until somebody does something and makes a ton of mistakes and then comes back and says, hey guys, you know, I did this failed, this worked, this wasn't awesome. I thought this would be super cool, and then it turns out it's not really. And then instructs us as a society on how to not screw up our lives. Until we have that, and sometimes until you've got several people making monstrous failures, like we haven't had really like cruise ships sink since the Titanic.
Yeah.
That one massive epic failure in the early 1900s set the stage for we're going to just not do things like this ever again. And technology and innovation kind of follows. We just haven't. There's been epic failures with social media.
Epic. I still
Epic.
think
But
a lot of it is.
we also we don't we as a society and culture don't learn lessons like we used to.
Hmm.
It has to be very personalized for people, and sometimes they still lack the awareness to see that, oh, this is me. It's not somebody else's fault. It's me. Only person to change here is
Yeah. Well, I remember being when I was at ACU and we were going to some various theater conferences, and I was sitting in on a conference with a woman who was a professor at maybe Arkansas State or some other bigger university, and the whole premise of this particular conference was discussing, hey, you want to get into grad school? Here's some suggestions. Here's some things to do, and here's some things not to do. And this is probably 2007, 8, 9, back in there. And she made a really big point to be careful about what you do and do not post on social media. And I think we've kind of learned that lesson now, that like your employer possibly could go look and see what you're posting, see what your social media presence is all about. And I also have always thought that was an interesting sort of crossing point or tipping point in a way, because if you're a younger person, you don't maybe have the maturity to think, or at least back when a lot of social media first came out, and I think it's still true today, that you don't have the wherewithal to say, should I really post this?
Well, this is me, take me as I am.
Mm-hmm.
Which there's something empowering about that.
Right.
But there's balance.
Well, okay, I'm going to bring up another example. I think there was a time not that long ago where the Hawk Tuah girl wouldn't have gotten her own podcast. And there would have been maybe some slut shaming or whatever, and it would have just kind of gone away. The meme would have been around for 15 days, and then it would have kind of left. But she was able to capitalize on it, and I think good for her. But also, what lesson can we learn from that right now? Where there was a time not that long ago where if you had been caught saying anything on camera, on social media that was derogatory or a little risque or whatever, or you just presented yourself in a way that maybe wasn't acceptable or professional, or setting yourself in a better light than otherwise, and now we've kind of come almost full circle where it's like super acceptable culturally to kind of see how wild and crazy you can get. Did you see the videos of Jake Paul for the boxing thing, and he's got the big fat fake belly on?
Yeah.
Like that wouldn't have flown 5 years ago.
That's what Ben and I are going to talk about here in a few minutes.
But like 5 years ago, I don't think that would have flown. I think there's such this degree of like, I can poke so much fun at myself now, like in Jake Paul's scenario. I can kind of go in any direction. I can be wild and crazy.
I think it depends on the people.
Maybe it does.
I think with some people with massive, humongous followings, no matter what they do, still people are going to follow them and worship them.
But then you have creators like Mr. Beast, who does weird and wacky and wild stuff. But it almost seems to have, like, he's got like a built-in morality about it. I guess that's what I'm trying to say, is like, I'm not trying to pull morality into social media, but I'm questioning what morality, like, is present in social media. Do we even have a litmus test anymore?
Well, I think the institutions that run social media try to implement that, but it's kind of skewed. Like, I didn't get banned on TikTok, but I got flagged for commenting something on one of my best friend's posts because she said something. She made a post about how like she was choosing to believe in herself and choosing to like see herself as this very beautiful person. I'm like, hell yeah, you're beautiful. And I said something like, any asshole that doesn't see that, like, they deserve to get punched in the throat. I said something. I'm not a violent person.
But you said something violent.
Well,
potentially could be construed that way.
Actually, I don't even think I said punched in the throat. Uh, I think I used a 4-letter word.
Okay.
And they flagged me and said like, and I was like, so I messaged her. I'm like, hey, I wasn't trying to be offensive or whatever. She's like, no, you can't cuss on TikTok. And I was like, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know. I mean, I guess I checked off the box that said I wasn't going to do that when I signed up, but like I forgot since then because just about every other social media, you can kind of say what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't try to be offensive,
No, of course not.
but so part of this is creating these rules, and I think that's positive in a sense to like kind of police some of these things, but some people get away with certain things to an extreme extent because they have popularity and because they're drawing attention and they're keeping people on the apps and they're keeping people on the platforms, and so they have the pass.
Mm-hmm.
And then other people don't. And so
when it comes to free speech, if you have a big enough following, maybe you can get away with a little bit more.
your speech is more free.
Your speech is more free based on how many people are hearing it.
Just like your speech is more free, the more money you have.
Yeah, the more money you have, the more free your speech is. That's an interesting topic.
You almost could say the more free you are in America because you can afford an actual attorney and all this other.
Interesting. Mm-hmm.
No, that's just wrapping.
Oh, wrap it up.
Mm.
Heard. So, okay. So, D. Grant, thanks for being here again.
Thank you.
We'll try it again next week.
We'll do it again next week.
We'll do her again next week. We'll do her dirty. Thank you guys for tuning in
Yes.
and listening to what we had to say today, and hopefully you garnered a little something extra out of it.
Thank you for tuning in again to because what did we talk about today?
Some stuff. We definitely talked about stuff for a while. This has been fun again. I love it. Y'all come out to the show tonight. Are you gonna come out?
I'm gonna do my best.
Good, sweet. It sounds great. We got some new speakers out there. All right, so thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next week. Coming up next, we got Benjamin Fair and Ben's Breakdown with Ben.
Winner.
All right, thanks, man.